Have you ever wondered why you're constantly overlooked despite doing everything right? You open doors, you listen attentively, you're always there when she calls, yet somehow, you remain invisible. The harsh Machiavellian truth you're about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about attraction. Women don't see you, not really, and it's not because you're not good enough. It's because you're too good, too available, too predictable, too nice. You feel that gnawing pain each time you're labeled "you're just a friend," while watching her choose men who don't treat her half as well as you would. You've been told to just be yourself, that the right one will appreciate your kindness. Yet that appreciation never materializes into genuine desire. The real problem: you've been playing a game without understanding the rules. Today, you'll finally see the brutal reality that Machiavelli understood centuries ago. In the dynamics of attraction, being nice isn't a virtue. It's a strategic weakness that renders you psychologically invisible to women. The biological foundations of female selectivity. You need to understand this first. What you perceive as cruel or unfair is simply evolutionary psychology at work. For millennia, women have developed sophisticated filtering mechanisms to identify men with genuine power and status, not just those who claim to have it. Think about it. When you immediately offer endless validation, unwavering support, and constant availability without requiring anything in return, what message are you really sending? You're broadcasting that you have no other options, no competing interests, and no greater purpose beyond securing her approval. And here's the Machiavellian insight that will change everything. People don't value what they don't have to work for. When you make yourself too easily obtained, you trigger an ancient psychological mechanism in the female mind, one that automatically categorizes you as low value. Not because you actually are, but because you failed the most fundamental test of social power: scarcity. You've been making 3 critical mistakes that are systematically destroying your attractiveness. Let's dissect them one by one. Fatal error. Number 1, excessive validation. Every time you immediately agree with her, shower her with compliments she hasn't earned, or rush to validate her every thought and feeling, you're actively diminishing your value in her eyes. Consider this scenario. She posts a photo online, and within seconds, you've liked it and left an effusive comment. Meanwhile, the man she's actually attracted to might see it hours later, or not acknowledge it at all. You think you're showing interest. She subconsciously registers your behavior as desperation. Machiavelli understood this perfectly when he wrote, "The wish to acquire more is admittedly a very natural and common thing, and when men succeed in this, they are always praised rather than condemned. But when they lack the ability to do so and yet want to acquire more at all costs, they deserve condemnation for their mistakes. Your mistake is wanting validation and connection at all costs. And women can sense this imbalance of power instantly." Fatal error. 2, conflict avoidance. You pride yourself on never arguing, always accommodating her needs, and maintaining harmony at all costs. You believe this makes you superior to those toxic men who challenge her. But here's what's really happening. By avoiding all conflict, you're signaling that you lack the confidence to hold boundaries. You're communicating that her approval is more important than your principles. Consider how you react when she tests you. And yes, these tests are deliberate. When she cancels plans last minute, expresses interest in another man, or makes a subtly disrespectful comment, do you call it out directly and calmly, demonstrating that you have standards, or swallow your discomfort, rationalize her behavior, and continue being understanding? If you chose B, you've failed her unconscious assessment of your strength. Women aren't attracted to men they can control completely. As Machiavelli noted, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. This doesn't mean being cruel. It means being willing to walk away rather than compromise your self-respect. Fatal error. 3, unlimited availability. This might be the most damaging mistake of all. When you're always available, answering texts immediately, rearranging your schedule at a moment's notice, having nothing in your life that takes precedence over her, you eliminate any sense of challenge or mystery. Think about the last time you were pursuing a woman. When you texted, were you always available within seconds? When she needed something, did you drop everything to provide it? When she wanted to see you, did you clear your calendar without hesitation? Each time you did this, you were unconsciously telling her, I have nothing of value happening in my life that competes with you for my attention. Machiavelli understood that power requires the perception of being engaged in matters of importance. A prince must always give the impression that if you approach him with a reasonable request, he will hear you out. However, he must be determined in his judgment and should be seen as someone not to be trifled with. When you're perpetually available, you cannot be seen as someone not to be trifled with. You become, instead, someone to be taken for granted. Now let's examine exactly how women respond to these fatal errors. This isn't about malice. It's about unconscious psychological mechanisms that have evolved over thousands of years. When you make yourself too available, too validating, and too conflict avoidant, you trigger what psychologists call strategic devaluation. This process happens in 4 distinct phases. Phase 1, testing. Initially, she'll test your boundaries to see if your nice guy persona is authentic or a mask covering insecurity. These tests might include canceling plans at the last minute, mentioning other men she finds attractive, making small requests that gradually increase in magnitude, deliberately creating conflicts to see how you respond. Most nice guys fail these tests spectacularly. When she cancels, you say, no problem. When she mentions other men, you hide your jealousy. When she makes requests, you fulfill them eagerly. When she creates conflict, you apologize, even when you've done nothing wrong. Each failure reinforces her unconscious perception that you lack the strength to be a worthy partner. Phase 2. Categorization. Once you've failed enough tests, she mentally places you in the emotionally convenient but not sexually valuable category. This is the dreaded friend zone, though in reality, it's more accurately described as the emotional utility zone. At this stage, she'll begin to use phrases like, "You're such a good friend. I wish I could find someone like you. You're going to make someone so happy someday." What she's really saying is, you provide emotional benefits without triggering my attraction mechanisms. Phase 3. Exploitation. Here's where the Machiavellian nature of female psychology becomes most apparent. Once categorized as a non-romantic option, many women will still keep you in their orbit, not as a potential partner, but as a source of validation, emotional support, and occasional practical assistance. You might find yourself in scenarios like being called when she's upset about another man, helping her with tasks that a boyfriend would typically handle, providing advice and emotional support without receiving the same in return, being introduced to her friends as just a friend, despite your deeper feelings. This exploitation isn't consciously malicious. She genuinely values what you provide. She just doesn't value it romantically. As Machiavelli observed, men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived. Phase 4. Complete invisibility. The final phase is the most painful. After months or years of providing emotional labor without reciprocation, you become completely invisible as a sexual or romantic prospect. This invisibility is so complete that she may even discuss her romantic frustrations with you, genuinely perplexed about why she can't find a good man, while you, a man who believes himself to be good, are sitting right in front of her. The cruelest irony, if you finally express your feelings, she'll likely respond with shock and confusion. But I never saw you that way. And she's telling the truth. In her mind, you were never a possibility. You rendered yourself invisible through your own behavior. To truly understand why nice guys become invisible, you need to grasp the core psychological drivers of female attraction. 3 critical mechanisms are at work. 1. The scarcity principle. Humans intrinsically value what is rare and difficult to obtain. This isn't a cultural construct. It's hardwired into our neurology through the dopamine reward system. When something or someone is too easily available, the brain assigns it lower value automatically. This is why luxury brands deliberately limit their production, why exclusive clubs have long waiting lists, and why the man who maintains some mystery generates more interest than the one who reveals everything immediately. By making yourself constantly available, you're triggering her brain's automatic devaluation response. 2. The competence indicator. Throughout human evolution, women have needed to identify men who could protect and provide under challenging circumstances. This created a psychological filter that associates certain behaviors with competence and others with weakness. Setting boundaries, maintaining personal priorities, and occasionally saying no are all signals of competence. They indicate that you can manage complex demands and aren't easily manipulated, qualities essential for survival in challenging environments. When you avoid all conflict and prioritize her needs above your own without reciprocation, you're failing this unconscious competence assessment. 3. The challenge response. The human brain is stimulated by appropriate challenges. Too little challenge creates boredom. Too much creates anxiety. Attraction thrives in the sweet spot between these extremes. When you present no challenge whatsoever, when you're completely predictable, entirely accommodating, and instantly available, you trigger neither anxiety nor excitement. You become, psychologically speaking, like background furniture, present but unnoticed. This is why women often remain fixated on men who are emotionally unavailable or inconsistent. The uncertainty creates a neurochemical cocktail that mimics attraction, while your consistency generates neurochemical indifference. Now we arrive at the most crucial insight, the point at which Machiavelli's understanding of power dynamics reveals the harsh truth about why nice guys become completely invisible to women. There exists what psychologists call the invisibility threshold, the point at which a man's behaviors trigger a permanent perceptual shift in a woman's mind. Once you cross this threshold, you cease to exist as a potential romantic partner. You become, quite literally, invisible to her sexual selection mechanisms. This threshold is crossed when you demonstrate, through consistent behavior over time, that you value her approval more than your own self-respect. When you consistently accept disrespect without consequence, provide benefits without requiring reciprocation, remain available despite being repeatedly deprioritized, suppress your own needs to accommodate hers, you trigger a psychological classification in her mind that is nearly impossible to reverse. The most devastating aspect of this threshold, once crossed, no amount of subsequent value demonstration can easily undo it. You can achieve great success, develop impressive skills, or transform your physical appearance, and she will still see you through the lens of your previous behavior. This explains the common phenomenon where a woman who rejected you years ago remains uninterested even after you've significantly improved your status or appearance. Your initial behavioral patterns created a perceptual filter through which all your subsequent actions are interpreted. As Machiavelli understood, the first impression that a subject forms of his ruler's intelligence is derived from the quality of the men around him. In dating terms, the first impression a woman forms of your value is derived from how you allow yourself to be treated, and this impression becomes nearly impossible to change. The ultimate Machiavellian irony. Your very attempts to be seen, through increased kindness, availability, and accommodation, are precisely what render you invisible. You now understand the brutal truth that Machiavelli recognized centuries ago. In the realm of attraction, those who surrender their power in hopes of being valued for their kindness end up being valued for nothing at all. This doesn't mean you should become cruel or manipulative. It means you must recognize that authentic strength, the kind that commands both respect and desire, comes from valuing yourself enough to establish boundaries, maintain standards, and occasionally prioritize your own interests. The path forward requires a fundamental shift in your approach. 1. Begin valuing your time and attention as the precious resources they are. 2. Establish clear boundaries and enforce them consistently. 3. Develop genuine passions and priorities beyond romantic pursuit. Learn to be comfortable with measured conflict. Recognize that true respect cannot exist without some degree of healthy fear. Fear of losing you. As you implement these changes, You'll notice an immediate shift in how women respond to you. The same women who once overlooked you will suddenly take notice. The same women who used to cancel plans will start prioritizing time with you. The same women who kept you in the friend zone will begin to question their initial assessment. This transformation isn't magic, it's psychology. By recalibrating the power dynamic, you trigger the primal attraction mechanisms that have governed human mating for thousands of years. Consider this: every bad boy who effortlessly attracts women isn't necessarily more attractive, wealthier, or even more interesting than you. What he possesses is an intuitive understanding of power dynamics that you've been programmed to ignore. He knows, as Machiavelli did, that it is much safer to be feared than loved, especially when beginning any relationship of consequence. The most liberating aspect of this realization: the power has always been yours. Every time you were relegated to the friend zone, every time you were taken for granted, every time you were passed over, it wasn't something being done to you. It was the predictable result of the signals you were sending. By reclaiming your power, by becoming more selective with your time, more assertive with your boundaries, and more committed to your own path, you don't just become more visible to women, you become more visible to yourself. You rediscover the man you were always capable of being before society convinced you that self-sacrifice was the path to connection. Remember what Machiavelli understood so clearly: men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. When you remove all possibility of losing you, you eliminate both impulses simultaneously. A woman cannot love what she cannot fear losing. This isn't cruelty, it's human nature at its most fundamental level. The most powerful position in any dynamic isn't domination, it's the willingness to walk away. When you genuinely value yourself enough to leave situations that don't serve you, you paradoxically become infinitely more valuable to those around you. The final Machiavellian insight you must internalize is this: power isn't something you demand, it's something you embody. When you no longer need external validation to feel complete, when your sense of worth comes from within rather than from others' approval, you naturally begin to operate from a position of strength. This inner transformation radiates outward, changing how the world, and especially women, respond to you. The question now is, will you continue sacrificing your visibility on the altar of niceness, or will you reclaim your power and finally be seen? Will you keep believing the comfortable lies about just being yourself? Or will you embrace the uncomfortable truth that authentic attraction requires authentic strength? The choice, as it has always been, remains yours. But now, armed with Machiavelli's brutal insights, you can finally make that choice from a position of knowledge rather than naivete. So tell me, how many of these invisible behaviors have you been guilty of? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this brutal truth resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe for more unfiltered insights that nobody else is willing to tell you. And don't forget to check out our previous videos on female psychology. Each one reveals another piece of the puzzle you've been missing all this time. Remember, in the game of power and attraction, it's better to be respected than to be liked. Because without respect, you'll never truly be seen. And the man who cannot be seen cannot be desired, no matter how nice he might be.